think would be good.
Yeah, I think it's added to these guys.
All right, good morning, everybody. For those who don't know, my name is John Wells. I'm going to be kind of the facilitator of this, but I'm going to turn the mic over to Steve Smith, here, our EC, to tell you the rules of the road for here. So go ahead.
I got my own. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Lee County Emergency Operations Center. Rules of the road. You know, if you saw them on the way in, the restrooms are outside the hallway door here to the left. The front door was supposed to remain open, but apparently the word didn't quite make it, so the front door is locked. If you have to go outside for any reason, take somebody with you who can let you back in. That will be important. We had a training class here once, and I forget who it was, but somebody walked outside to smoke a cigarette. And it was half an hour before we found him. So be conscious of that. Please, if you're drinking something that's not just plain water, please don't spill it. I'm the guy that's going to catch you know what. I defer to the young man here that won't say what. But be careful. No eating in this room. If you want to eat something, please go to the cafeteria and do it there. All right. Thank you, gentlemen.
All right, thank you, Steve. So I want to welcome everyone to our class today. Got a nice turnout again, just like we did last time. Some of you are repeat offenders, repeat participants. That's great for us. As some of you may know, I'm former law enforcement, so some of our other folks in here, so we kind of get that at least humor. What we're going to start off with is we have some handouts for you. We'll give them to you here in a few minutes, but we're going to start our introduction, kind of let you know who we are and what we're going to do over this next course of a couple hours or so. We don't really aren't on a time per se. I do have like a little grid here that tells me the time, but you usually got to add a few minutes on when I teach a class because I talk a lot. So that's the problem with that. So let's go ahead and we'll start off here. If you have any questions at any time, please, there's a couple things we can talk about. These little cards, we put some index cards on your desks there, or tables. If you have a question you're afraid to either ask, you want to remember it to ask the question, throw it on one of those cards. It'll help us out a lot, and then we can get to it. If we haven't already answered it, we'll get it at the end for sure. All right, so I guess I'll start off. Well, no, actually, I'm going to let Dave go first. You're first, Dave. Go ahead.
All right, good morning, everyone. Thanks for being here. For those that don't know me, my name is Dave Sheppard. My call sign is W2PAX. I'm the ARRL appointed net manager for the Southwest Florida Traffic Net. I'm a general licensee. I've been licensed about 10 years, but I've been around ham radio my entire life. I was originally licensed as KJ4NKJ. When I upgraded to general, I took my grandfather's old call sign, W2PAX. He was licensed in December of 1946. So there's a lot of history to that call sign. So why the radiogram? In this age of digital this and digital that, why are we using what amounts to what some might think is Western Union? Well, I can give you a personal experience that might help you get through that, and might answer that question for you. I started checking into the Southwest Florida Traffic Net simply as in and out and never moving a piece of traffic back in 2017. In August of 2017, I finally mustered up the courage to send my very first radiogram. You can tell me what happened in September of 2017. Hurricane Irma. I live down in Golden Gate Estates, Collier County. If anyone knows anything about Golden Gate Estates, most of the residential streets are mile-long dead ends, as is mine. Being in Golden Gate Estates, we were in the eastern eye wall for quite a while. We suffered 155 mile-an-hour gusts. How my freestanding 40-foot tower stayed up is beyond me, but it did. The next morning, when we finally mustered up the courage to peek outside, of course we had no cell service, no utilities, and there were two giant pine trees crisscrossing at the end of our street. So we had no utilities, no communication, no access. What I did have was a generator, a ham station, and a pad of these. I got a message out to my mom in North Carolina. She was able to let the rest of the family know that despite Jim Cantori's gyrations on television, there actually was life after Irma. The radiogram format provides a standardized method of sending messages clearly and efficiently. That's something that you need to keep in mind as we go through the class, because that speaks to everything that we're going to talk about and how the NTS works. I'll throw it back to John Wells, W4CMH. He's the professional teacher in the group and a guy that's a lot smarter than I am.
Okay, well, you never can stand up that kind of All right, so yes, I am W4CMH. I am an extra class license holder, and really the reason I'm an extra class license holder is because I'm one of these people that's a procrastinator. So once I started getting my technician, I just went technician, general, extra. And part of the reason was because my Yaesu, my brand new Yaesu, had to go back. And if anyone sent anything back to Yaesu, it usually goes by Rat Pack, right? So it takes like 6 weeks to turn around. So I thought, I'm not going to waste my time. I got my extra. That way I didn't have to worry about what band I was on or whatever. Anyway, I'm also an NTS official relay station. For you who don't know, official relay stations are appointed positions by ARRL headquarters. You get a little certificate. It doesn't mean anything. It just means that you're able to move traffic when necessary. And I moved a lot of traffic, different nets, including emergency nets as well as NTS nets. I'm on there every day. If you're an NTS traffic handler, I can give you a little example. I spend approximately an hour and a half every day or more on NTS nets at some point. Of course, maybe 15 minutes here or 20 minutes here. The longest I spend is on the Southwest Florida traffic net because it's the only traffic net where you get to make comments. The other ones do not. I'm on Tropical Fastnet at 6 o'clock, usually about 10 minutes. So it just depends on how the net is being run. I'm also a liaison. We're going to talk about these terms. NCS stands for Net Control Station, right? If you don't know that, we're going to talk about what a net control station is, and you are actually going to get to practice. And I'm a liaison. A liaison means that I am facilitating, I'm not the only one, but I'm facilitating messages from our net to the next net and back again. So I'm kind of the messenger, the runner, or whatever you want to call it. So that's what a liaison is. So you're going to hear those terms a lot. When I first started on the net, I was told, hey, you can join and be a liaison. You'll hear it in the net announcements that Dave does, and you're like, what the heck is that? And it's nothing cool, too. It's not like you're going to have a liaison with somebody either. So anyway, that's what's going on there. So if you have any questions, please let us know as we're going through this. If not, you want to write on the cards, like I said, we'll do that as well. Dave is passing out a packet of information for you. All of these documents are available on our NTS, our website, on the FMARC website. So since we are affiliated with the Fort Myers Amateur Radio Club, we were lucky enough, Tim in the back is our webmaster, and he does a fantastic job. He's got his hand up. He does a fantastic job of keeping our stuff up to date when we send it to him, and it's not his responsibility to keep it up to date. It's our job to get him the most current stuff, and that's what we do. So any of these forms, plus we have a link to the NTS website at ARRL, which would have a lot of additional information as well. We were very lucky to get that approved by the board of the FMARC. All right, so here's our overview of the day. We're going to talk about the national traffic system, what it is, and we're going to talk about how it works. We're going to start with that, and then we're going to move on to radiograms, and that's probably the crux of this whole thing, right? If we can't develop a radiogram in an effective format, then we are doing nothing, right? And then finally, we're going to talk about net control station procedures. Our ultimate goal from this class is not only to educate you in the NTS so that you can be a better traffic handler, and of course, if you're an emergency operator like an ARRL member, we obviously want you to know how to handle traffic in general. But also, we want you to understand what it's like to be a net control station. Now, we're going to train you more or less towards our net, but we will talk about general NCS responsibilities. If you've never been one before, it is quite an adventure, and it's something you really got to pay attention to when you are in control. But it's a lot of fun, and on our net, it's a lot better because we have a really rigid thing going on. It's not like an emergency net where everything's gone to crap and people are just calling in. So it is actually really regimented. So we're in pretty good shape, and you'll see that stuff in there. And we'll refer to those documents as we go along. All right, so what is the National Traffic System? Well, you make sure everybody's got one. Okay, it's a field organization by the ARRL, and it has kind of fallen by the wayside until just recently. It has kind of not been the ARRL's baby, really. But we have a new CEO at the ARRL, and he is really strumming this along. And also, there's a brand new, for those of you who are not ARRL members, there's a brand new ARRL plan out, and it actually addresses the ARRL program along with the NTS. So I think we're going to see a little more activity going on. As you can see on my little slide, I'm not going to read the whole thing to you. Started in 1914. That's a little while ago. That was definitely before I was born. And also, what their goal was, obviously, was to try to get messages going. And what I like to refer to this as is kind of an upgraded Pony Express, right? If you start a message on our net, the Southwest Florida Traffic Net, and then it's going, say, to Ohio is a good example, because that's where I'm from. What happens is it'll go from our net, the liaison will take it to the Florida net, or a regional net of some kind, and then it'll continue on up to the eastern, and we'll talk more about that, and then finally go to Ohio and then back down through the system. So think about it as like the Pony Express. in. That's really what's going on, but we're using our radio. So if you think about it, back in the early 1900s, that Pony Express was just kind of being phased out. So I think it kind of makes a good analogy. Also, we're going to talk about how messages are sent. We're going to talk about the ARRL radiogram format. The reason it's format, is a very important word here, is it needs to be sent consistently the same way because everyone's listening for the same thing. That's what makes it fast. And you're going to, when I read some to you later, you're going to see what I'm talking about, how to speed it up and get it done. Those of you that have been on our net, and it takes 2.5 to 3 minutes to pass a piece of traffic, you will die up on HF. It's less than a minute, okay? So, and it's going up and down on the bands. Because the way we do it is a little different. And that's what we're going to teach you today, is how to do it the right way, so that way you don't have to adjust the nets you go to. And as you can see up there too, we can send these messages on all these different modes. Those of you that send WinLink messages can do it. Those of you that are CW folks, I'm not, but you can do it. And of course, digital, other phone methods and digital methods as well. All right. And then the message is ultimately delivered to the address C. We try to get it there within 24 to 36 hours on a routine message. You know, the old, hey, I can't wait to see you again kind of message. If it's an emergency, obviously it gets there very quickly. And then one of the things we think about, generally all of us try real hard to get it there in 24 hours. Part of the reason is have any of you looked at your ham shacks lately? How many are you going to find that message in 2 days? Probably not. I've seen it looks like bombs going off. So the bottom line is if you can do it quickly, you won't forget, right? If we all get forgetful, you know, you get told to go somewhere and then you forget to do it. It's just the way it is. Okay, the last mile is the hardest part of the radiogram message to get through. It's that last mile. If you think about Puerto Rico, when it got thumped by Maria and by Irma both, they lost 95% of their infrastructure. So to get a message in there was like impossible. To get them out was not too bad because we had amateurs that were on solar power. But by the way, they did not use the NTS radiogram. It was one line with a message. It was pretty intense. 200 messages in an hour usually was coming out of there. And so those of us who were passing was tough. All right, so who are the players that play on these nets? This is always important. First, we got the net manager. In our case, Dave is our net manager. But he has a superior net manager really that's over him, and that is W2PH. And he is over on the East Coast, and he is the section net manager. So he is ultimately responsible for all of them. And we're also lucky today, we also have Tom, he's sitting back there. He's our Aries net manager for the Southern Florida section as well. So there's a lot of managers out there. Their job is to make sure that it's manned, make sure it meets when it's supposed to, make sure that people have the information they need to operate the net correctly, and also to manage its overall function. That's their job. What's a net control station? This is probably one of the more integral parts of it. This is the person who controls the net when it's on the air, right? Keeps everything under control, makes sure everybody gets accounted for, make sure that messages get passed, get assigned to the right people, and all those good things. Then you have liaisons, right? And I already told you what the liaison or representative is. We use both terms. And then we have the official relay station, and we have net stations, which are you guys. Let's talk about each of these in detail now. All right, so net managers are appointed positions. Okay, they're appointed by the section manager. In our case, Barry Porter is the section manager of Southern Florida here. So he appoints. When you're appointed to a position, then it's an official kind of position, right? Also, in the case of Dave, he obviously manages our local net, but he also coordinates all the handling. So that's what his job is. So one of his major problems is getting enough net control stations, right? Because there's just not enough people willing to do it. It takes some dedication. It's not hard to do. And your first time doing it can be a little rough, but there's a lot of us out here that are more than willing to do it with you. I've had people over to my house too, they've watched do it and things like that. They can do it at my house. So that's what the net manager does. And of course, they make sure that the messages are being handled properly, kind of check people. If they're kind of a little lost, a little forgotten, maybe somebody, you know, they're kind of paying attention. Again, the word manager in this case. If you think of Aries, we always use the word coordinator more than we use manager. All right, net control station. This is what you want to eventually become if you can. There's a couple reasons why. One is it really helps you understand how the net runs. They manage the activity that's going on. They make sure that we follow the sequence, make sure we get everybody checked in, make sure we get our messages moved. We also make sure we get all any emergency traffic. Okay, most of us have been pretty lucky. We have not had an emergency come across amateur radio in a long, long time. But if you're a net control station, you got to be listening for that, because you've got to relinquish the repeater right away if somebody calls in with an emergency and try to help them if we can. You got to adapt to the circumstances. I call it adapt and overcome. It's what I always talk to my daughter about. So if something goes a little whopper job, you just got to fix it. And that's what you've got to do. And that messes people up sometimes. But don't worry about it. We will help you as much as we can. And then, of course, I said overseas emergencies. But you're really maintaining order and discipline of the net so it gets done. Because remember, we're trying to do everything kind of timely. We don't want to sit there for 3.5 hours. Okay, it's just a little too long. And you also want to set a good example. You know, that's really important as well. And then what's nice is when you learn on a local net, the most embarrassment you got is local. If you're on an HF net, everybody in the world will be listening. So this could be another way to think of it. All right, let's talk about liaisons representatives. We use both these terms on our net, but liaisons representatives are the same. Basically what they're doing is they're bringing traffic to the net and away from the net. We use the word representative for our Florida phone traffic net representative, which is in the morning. We use the word liaison for the rest of the nets, but it's the same. It's the same thing. Our job, we're designated to do this. We would really could use a lot more. Those of you that have HF capability would really help us out a lot. And then we check into the next to net nets as needed. I would tell you this, we're not required to check into every net that follows, but we generally do, and we're going to talk about the layout of those nets. I talked about this a little bit earlier, this traffic official relay station. That's what these are. They call them ORSs. You can become one of these. You get on our net, you participate for a while, you get your handling skills up to good speed where you're really good at it, and eventually you can apply and get a certificate from the ARRL again, and it's kind of a nice thing to have. Now, the net managers, beyond Dave's level, pay attention to these ORSs because they'll use them more because of the fact that they need people on the HF side. It's just one of those things. All right, so we got the official relay station. All right, you can kind of read. I'm going to read the slides to you. That's not my goal here. All right, let's talk about the net stations. Who are they? They are you. When you're checking in on our nets, that's who you are. You're a net station. You're checking in. You're listening to and understanding when to respond. You're checking into our net when asked to do so. And you'll hear in our preamble we talk about that. And any net, always wait until they ask for check-ins because they're generally running a cadence of some kind, trying to get certain people into the net that they need to get in there right away. So it's good to do that. If you jump out of order, those of you that are NCSs know people jump out of order. You just got to kind of be nice. Okay, I got you, but hang on, we'll talk to you just in a little bit. And then, of course, you want to bring messages to the net. So your job is to bring messages to the net and to take messages that come to our net via liaisons and representatives and other ways and deliver them. You're a lot of times that last mile, the hardest part of the net. Operations is that last mile. So you get to deliver. And those of you that have delivered to new hands, because there's sometimes messages for new hands, they're pretty ecstatic sometimes to get those messages because they didn't even know the NTS, what the NTS is. And it's a chance for you to try to cultivate as well. So net stations are super important because without net stations, we don't need anybody else, right? Because we need this. So don't be afraid after the class today. I think you'll know how to generate messages. We're going to give you some examples, but also we're always available to talk on the phone, talk you through it, or whatever. All right. Any questions on any of these things so far? All right. Let's talk about NTS hierarchy. We got one. Yes, sir. Leo, go ahead.
Question for you. If a local net is unavailable or unreachable, can an individual station check into a higher level net like section, region, or area?
The answer is yes. And especially if you have traffic, because you'll check in with traffic. So you'll be one of the first to go in, yes. The goal is, so the goal of the whole system is to exercise the whole system as much as possible. So if I had a message to send to California and I got an HF net and transferred it to California, I now have circumvented, you'll see the hierarchy and how it works, but now I've circumvented a whole bunch of nets. And from a routine message perspective, we're just trying to work it all the time. If people are not participating, or if people are participating, there's nothing to do, they get bored very quickly and they don't no longer participate. So then when the time comes, and I say, okay, let's get this radiogram done, everybody goes, yeah, where's mine? And then it's downhill from there, or I can't remember what goes in which plaque, or whatever. So that's a good question. You can go outside of it. I do it once in a while myself. Because a lot of times I'm liaison a lot of the time. Well, I'm not going to send my message to myself. It's not going to happen. So we're hoping to get more liaisons to solve that problem, aren't we, Dave? All right. So the United States and Canada are region, areas, and then you have 12 regions within that. Do you know what region we're in? Some of you guys got call signs. I got one that has it. We're 4th region, correct. We're 4th region. And then there's many section and local nets, as you're going to hear. One of us is, of course, the Southwest Florida Traffic Net. We're a local net. We're going to talk about how your messages kind of draw over in just a second. So here's the map from one of the books, from one of the ARRL books. And you can see that we are the 4th region. I can't use a laser pointer on these screens, but you can see we're 4th region right there. You can kind of see the whole area. You also see that we're part of the eastern area there. You can kind of see that line shooting down here where the Mississippi is and then away from it. And then out west as well. The goal of this is that the message goes, say, from Southwest Florida up to the state level, then up to the region level, then up to the area, and then back down the same way. That's the goal. And the goal is to work the system. And the nets are set up so that they're timed so that you can hit those nets individually and your message will get through a lot quicker. That's the goal. Hey, John. Yep.
Just a quick thing. I sent my first radiogram last week to Hawaii. I sent it on our net at 10 o'clock. Jeff Graham, KR4ST, sent it out on Tropical Fastnet at 6 o'clock that night. At 9 o'clock that night, the message had gotten just a little garbled in translation, but I got an email from one of the operators on the Eastern Area Net. So by 9 o'clock, in less than 12 hours, it had gone from our local net into the area already, and he had already passed it to the Pacific Area Net, which you can see is all the way over on the left. So in 11 hours, my message had already made it to essentially the California coast. It made it to Hawaii the next day. So that speaks to what John's talking about, as quickly as you can, but using as much of the system as you can at one time.
Is there a particular state in Section 4 that sends it to wherever or any?
Yeah, there are nets in the state. So in Florida, I can bounce that right now. So this is kind of how the traffic flow works. And this might answer your question too, Frank. If I don't, come back to me, okay? So basically what I have done here is I've made this grid a while ago. I've updated it because some things have changed. We're going to go opposite of the normal flow chart, right? Normal flow charts go down, but I'm going up on purpose because I'm saying that we're going up the chain, for lack of a better term. So we start at the local net, which is the bottom box up there. That's us. You pass a piece of traffic, then it moves to a section net, okay? Now there's several section nets. They can be within the state or they can just be within the section. And as you can see on this screen here, and you have this handout, by the way, you got your local net here. Then we go to one of these section nets. Now some of these are not working, like the Skyborne net is not working unless it's up and running for some reason. But the Florida Phone Traffic Net, which is in the morning, 7 a.m. for those who get up early, and then the Tropical Fast Net is at 6 p.m. Tropical Fast Net is kind of a weird name for a phone net because it was a combined net of a phone and CW net. So the word, when you hear fast and slow, you think CW, but in this case it's phone. These are all phone nets. I do not have any CW nets on here because most of us don't do CW. If you do, that's great, but I don't, because there's a 9 o'clock net. It's a fast net. It's 9 p.m. at night on 80 meters. But anyway, you can see it kind of follows. So you got the local net, it goes to the section net, then hopefully to the regional, then to the area net, which we're eastern. And then it can go to the transcontinental core if it's going overseas. So that's kind of how it goes. And then think about reversing that to bring your message back down. That's what the goal is, right? Up and then back down. And that's why I gave you this layout. So those of you that have the capability, if you can, you'll see what time your nets are, you can get in there and you can work out. And notice you got summer and winter time. I'm going to be honest with you, I don't know when summer and winter time is on these nets. I just noticed that if it's not there at the one time, it'll be there later, and then I know I'm back into it. I think there's an official time, but I've never seen it printed anywhere, so I don't know. So that's how it goes. Does that answer your question a little bit? Cool. So a section net could also be a state net. In this case, the Tropical Fast Net and the Florida Phone Net that you see in the section there, they're both just statewide. But this morning on the Florida Phone Traffic Net at 7 o'clock, we had a guy check in from Washington State because 80 meters was running a little bit long. All right. And 80 meters is tough, right? 80 and 40 meters is tough because a lot of us live in HOAs. I live in an HOA. All my antennas are homemade and in the attic. And I participate every day. I'm pretty lucky there. And some people in the club have had I've built my antenna for them in their attics too in HOAs, because the HOAs are just a bear. Okay, any questions about how this works? You got a handout in your thing. It's also there, it tells you what time it is and what frequencies are on, so if you want to go check yourself. And those are accurate as of today. It does move around a little bit. Oh, I'll make one other comment. Some of the old timers out there, the region net we used to report to was 4th Regions net. Those have kind of gone by the wayside. They kind of went defunct. They're trying to restart them again. So a gentleman named George W2FY, he just changed, or WF2Y, he changed his call sign here recently. It was another call, but he runs that Atlantic traffic net. It's an independent net, but they move traffic. And I got to tell you, every one of my messages that I've sent to that has gotten through. Every single one. I can't say that for 4th Region. So I think the guys he's got working with him are pretty dedicated. Guys and gals, by the way. Both. All right. And it's on 40 meters. Okay. All right, so what are radiograms? We started talking about radiograms. You should have some radiograms there on your desk there. They're white. They're printed out. On our website, you have your option. You can print out radiograms that are fillable. If you print them straight out, you can handwrite them. That's what I generally do. But if you want to do fillable PDF, it's on there. Also, you can buy the pads, the yellow ones like what Dave showed you, right? And you can buy these from ARRL. Myself, I print them out because I'm kind of a cheap guy. Plus, I go through a lot of these things. I just be fun in them. But they're nice to have in your go boxes and things like that if you're into portable stuff, because then, the pad doesn't get lost and whatnot. So, it's a standard message format. That's the key here, all right? And it's used to send written amateur radio messages throughout the national traffic system. That's all, anywhere in the world. We'll talk a little bit more about how we get it outside of the United States and where we can send it. It's very standardized. It's been standardized for a long, long time. And that's important to remember as we're trying to do standardization. There are 4 main sections we're going to talk about here as we are talking about radiograms. We're going to talk about the preamble. That's the very top. If you look at your radiogram, it's the very top bar that goes all the way across under that bold, under the word radiogram. Then you got your address C. That's the 2 box. I call it the TO box. And that's going to have your address and all of the information to contact the person. You can have phone numbers in there, you can have emails in there, etc. And call signs, oh yeah, definitely call signs. If you have a call sign for somebody, please put it in there, because a lot of us can look it up if something gets kind of messed up in the system. Then the next section is all those little blank lines, and that's called the text section. And you're going to notice there are 25 blank lines. We try to stay at 25 or less, and less is best. So that's one thing there. And then finally, we have a signature line. And the signature line does not exist on the radiogram. But on my printouts, they do, because I print them out with them. It's the very last line above the from box, and I'll show you in a minute, but we put who the person is that generated the message. Not the person who sent the message electronically or by radio, but the person who is actually the person who's writing the message. Okay? Now, why is that important? Well, it's going to be important here in about a split second, because guess what? No more death by PowerPoint for a little bit. What we're going to do here is I teach college, but I also teach in the middle schools. So they use a lot of these new terms you haven't ever heard of before. We call them shoulder partners, right? That's a partner to either your left or your right. You're going to use one of your shoulder partners. And what you're going to do here is you're going to make a message for them. All right, they've come to you. They're your neighbor, your friend. They can be your enemy. But they've come to you and asked you to create a message. So you're going to create a message for them using the radiogram. Okay? And we're going to talk about, this is the toughest message that you will probably make. But if you think about it, this is the most important one. Because if you're writing one for yourself, you know what you're doing. You know you're sending a birthday to your kid or something like that. But the next door neighbor, you're helping them generate one for themselves. Those of us who are in emergency communications, this is what we would be doing if a shelter manager came up to us and says, man, I need 50 cots like right now. Well, you can't give me 50 cots right now. That's not what you write in the message. So you got to help them get that figured out. Also, you can't let them go over the 25 words if we're using a radiogram, because generally we stay under that. What's going to happen, we're going to do that here in just a minute with your shoulder partner. want, just make it up if you wish. The type of message is known as a third-party message. In other words, you are not writing the message, you're writing it for somebody else. We call that third party, because you are really the first party, right? So think of it that way. And this has nothing to do with a third-party country agreement. Third-party countries are ones that we have had agreements with through the ARRL and through the FCC, actually, that allows us to pass radiograms to other countries. So how many in here have ever passed a message to North Korea? You're never going to do it, so don't worry about it. As long as Kim Jong-un's there. He is anti-anything from the outside. So, but if you wanted to pass, say, to Canada, not a problem, because they're part of a third-party agreement with us, so it's no big deal. Mexico is too. I mean, most of the countries around us, most of our allies are, but I will give you a weird one. Great Britain is actually one of our third-party partners. We can send to Great Britain, no problem. Can't send to Scotland, though. Scotland's part of Great Britain, but they goofed up when they wrote the paperwork. So those are things that are problems. That third-party agreement, we'll get past that. So this activity we're going to do right now gives you the chance to evaluate your understanding of radiogram format. So basically what I'm doing is I'm doing what they call kind of like a pretest, right? See how you know what you're doing now, and then by the end of the class you'll know more, hopefully. But this is the toughest one. This is an originated message, and this will become important when we talk about station activity reports and stuff later as well. Keep the radiogram for your reference. It is a progress. So we're going to give you about 10 minutes to work with your shoulder partner and make a radiogram for that person. Then we're going to talk about things we should have done and shouldn't have done. Everybody got it? If you don't know, ask Dave, and I'll be floating around to some other folks in here that actually know what's going on as well. Write the whole thing out. You make your message number and everything.
Let's see, Headley. Going to have a routine message, station of origin. That's going to be me, right? Right. Figure that out. That question for the check is New Hampshire doesn't have a lot of great coverage. Got a lot of repeaters, but nobody uses them.
But you can go on HF.
Yeah, so that's yeah, I've got the HF that I drag back and forth with. So I would most likely end up getting into something like, a section that's somewhere in New Hampshire.
There's a bunch of them.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that I wasn't going to, I like it.
So we're doing an originated message.
Huh?
Originated message.
Yeah.
We can send messages to England?
Yeah, just not Scotland.
Yeah.
Oh, wow, okay, good.
Because we tried to send one for Robert Fitzgerald to Scotland, and they weren't in agreement. I'm like, Great Britain.
Okay. Okay.
Apparently not.
Alrighty then. Have 4 messages for England.
Just look on the third-party agreement and see if they're on
What you do is you send it to England, have them tie it to a rock and throw it over the water.
Well, I think they got to England, then they could transmit it locally, and it'd be fine.
And then that's, you know what?
Now, in some third parties, too, you can only send to amateurs in that country.
not to like a friend or relative.
Okay, interesting.
So, yeah.
Like in Headley, he's from Trinidad. Trinidad cannot. They usually have. I think they have to have a ham license in order to send it
Yes.
into Trinidad.
I've done.
And he's done those.
Yeah.
But he can't send to say a friend that doesn't have a ham.
Right, so here, but here in the United States, I could send something to my brother who doesn't have a ham license.
Doesn't matter.
Right, right.
Just as
And
long
it
as you
doesn't
got
matter
a
in a lot
phone
of
number, yeah. Which I could just call him anyway, but.
Well, that's true. Well, the point is the system.
But, the point is really for a lot of this stuff, when it goes down and there is no phone available, cells are down, lines
It's
are down.
practice for when the
It's all practice for the bad days, man, absolutely.
For CMH.
Oh, we get your those teachers. Bible, you're doing Bible money. Priority, like it's priority. The priority. Oh yeah, no one's mercy. Oh yeah, that's a big. Oh, right. It's like emergency death on.
All right.
Ruth, I needed to speak with you. Go ahead, and come back. Ruth is a piano teacher, and so I just got an organ and I need some practice lessons. I have to see if she can start.
There, I gave you guys a chance. So, as you started to figure out originating a message is tough sledding, because there's a couple questions that come up. Let me go through some of the main high points here. And while I'm doing that, I'm going to pass around to you guys. This is my PDF version, printed out obviously. My PDF version, and the PDF is able to be modified and typed into. I actually put signature in here, so I'll just pass this around. You can see what you can do. You can modify these to yourself, and you can add an email or whatever you want. Yes, ma'am?
Question on that, how do you get rid of what's in there?
Just don't save it.
Oh, yeah.
Or just delete it. Save it as a new name and then, then do it. Yeah. So if you're doing the fillable PDFs, problem is I can't do fillable PDF on Android, and I'm an Android user too, so it kind of bothers me. But anyway, so there it is. So when we talk about these radiograms on originating, there's a couple things you want to remember. When you're originating for somebody else, the place of origin is where that person lives, or where it's being originated. So let's go this route. I'm going to give you an example. I'm delivering a message to Bob, KD8SYP back here. Raise your hand, Bob. Bob lives in Bonita Springs. Okay, he lives down in Bonita. So what will happen is I would call him up, and let's say I'm delivering a message to him from his daughter. Okay? And then I'll say to him, because I'm a guy that believes in churning stats, I'll say, hey, Bob, would you like to send a message back to your daughter? Why am I doing that? It's a chance for me to originate a message. So now I've delivered a message that I've already received to him. Now I'm going to get a third-party message. So if you look at your message format there, the number would be my message number. The precedence is still going to be routine because he's not going to send an emergency back that way. He can text or email or whatever, call her. The station of origin is going to be whom? You. Me, because I'm going to be the sending station. Great, Tom. The check's going to be whatever. The place of origin is going to be where? Bonita Springs, because he lives in Bonita Springs. Everything else is going to follow just like it should, but we get to the signature. Who's my signature? Leo.
Place of origin. If he's standing in front of you in Fort Myers,
We're both
generating,
Fort Myers. We're both
then,
Fort Myers.
okay.
It's wherever the message is being generated at.
Got it.
In this case, he's down, I'm on the phone with him, he's down at Bonita. That's correct. So tell me what you guys think. Who's going to be the signature on it? Is it going to be me?
No.
It's going to be him, because it's his message to his daughter. That's the key to remember. See, that's what I'm saying. When you generate your own messages all the time, you're always writing your name, your call, your city. It gets to be such a habit you don't even think about it. But you have to think about it a little bit when you're doing it for somebody else. So it is something to think about. That's the reason I do those. These are the hardest to do, the hardest to understand, because it's a third-party message. Try to remember that, because it's really important. It seems to be an issue. And we'll talk more about that when we get to SARs, but we're not going to do that right now. All right, so let's keep moving here. Yes, sir.
I'm thinking probably the most I would ever do it would like if I was down at the Sterile Recreation Center, we had some shelter, and I was able to get out. I would imagine people will come to me like Jim over here and say, well, I want to get a message to my daughter over the kid, and she lives in West Virginia.
Right.
So
that's a welfare message, right?
Yeah.
And we'll talk more about that in a second. But yes, that's right. He wants to do a welfare message from a shelter, yes. So in that case, it's an originated message, right? Because you're originating it for him, right? Because if he wants to act as an amateur, he can do it himself, right? So here we go. Good thinking now. That's right. All right, so let's talk about a radiogram. So I have stolen this, by the way. I did not make this slide exactly. Actually, I tweaked a couple things because I didn't like how the other slide was. Some of this stuff, my references are at the end. I actually stole some of this off of a presentation that's on the ARRL website, but I tweaked a couple things that were a little ambiguous to try to fix it a little bit. So, first things first, we got the first top part, it's called the preamble. And as you notice, the preamble starts with the number 704. That's the numbering. Let's talk about numbering for a second. We never put nulls in front of numbers. So your first message is never 001. Why do you think that is? Does anybody have an idea? What do you think? What do you think, Larry?
Slows things down.
Slows things down. It's unnecessary. This word is going to come up a ton. If it's unnecessary, please don't do it, because all you're doing is slowing things down. And it's very important to remember this. I'm saying it on voice, 001. Pretty fast, right? Be a little slower on code. Be really fast on digital. But what I'm saying is you got to remember, there's lots of different modes this message could go, so we want to make it as easy as possible for everybody. Your next one we're going to talk about is we're going to talk about your precedents. You have 4 precedences that you're allowed to use. The most common is routine. The most important one is emergency. It goes emergency, then priority, then welfare, and then goes to routine. Welfare is even ahead of routine. A lot of people tell you I'm sending health and welfare messages. It's called welfare. It's a W. Now, the word emergency will be spelled out. The rest are all letters. So P for priority, R for routine, W for welfare. But we will not say R, we'll say routine. Even though we don't write it all out, we still say the full word when we're reading the text, okay? It's important to remember. All right, the next one is your handling codes. In your handouts in there, some of you have already found it. I have a cheat sheet. No, I did not make it. It's fantastic, though. It's really 2 pages into one. And it has, I have mine laminated because I'm kind of OCD type. But basically, if you look at that sheet that's in there, it has a nice example at the top, and then it tells you a lot of the things that you need to know. So this little sheet by itself is almost enough to do it on your own. It's really well done. If you look on the right column underneath the example message, you see it says handling instructions.